Hello, my dear students. Let's start with another unit, that is Unit 5, Princess September. This is another unit that we will be seeing. Now, here is a story of a princess who was named September. It's a story of the king and queen of Siam that had many daughters, and because they had many daughters, it was difficult for them to remember. So it was difficult for the mother to remember the names. So they thought that it would be better if they named their daughters by the name of the months. So among them was Princess September, who was very beautiful and loved by all, as she was the youngest. And how his father used to gift them on his birthday every day. Rather receiving the gift, he used to give all of them gifts. Now this time, when his birthday was there, he thought of giving. He had nothing, so he thought of giving nothing in his mind. So he thought of giving them a parrot in a cage, in a golden cage. And how this parrot, they taught the parrot a different language. Then what happened to the parrot? The parrot died. Then how the princess met the small little bird, and that bird sang and pleased the princess, and how the story further goes on. So let's start with our chapter, Unit 5, Princess September. The king and queen of Siam had many daughters. Now Siam is now called as silent. The queen said that it would confuse her to remember so many names. One day the king decided to call them January. So the king decided to call them as January, February, March, till he came to the youngest, whom he called September. So the Princess September was the youngest among all. The king of Siam had a peculiar habit. Instead of receiving gifts on his birthday, he gave them. One year on his birthday, not having anything else handy, he gave each of his daughters a green parrot in a golden cage. The princesses were very proud of their parrots, and they spent an hour every day teaching them to talk. So the king of Siam always had this, on his birthday, he used to give gifts to everyone, all of his daughters. So on one of his birthday, he had nothing handy, so he gave green parrot in a golden cage to each one of them. And every day for an hour, they used to teach them how to talk. Presently, all the parrots could say, "God save the king," and some of them could say, "Pretty Polly," in no less than 7 Oriental languages. That means Oriental languages of the East. Okay? But one day, when Princess September went to say good morning to the parrot, she found it lying dead at the bottom of its golden cage. She burst into a flood of tears, and nothing that her maid of honors could say comforted her. So when she went to his room one day to say good morning to the parrot, so he found that the parrot was lying dead in the cage, at the bottom of the golden cage, and that made Princess September very sad, and she was in flood of tears. That means the tears wouldn't stop flowing from her eyes. And even the maid of honors, that means the women who were attending the princess, they are called as maid of honors, they could not also comfort the princess. She cried so much that the maid of honors, not knowing what to do, told the queen, and the queen said it was stuff and nonsense, and a child had better to go bed without any supper. So hearing that the queen, the princess, cried because of a dead parrot, the queen, the maid of honor went to the queen and they told that the princess had cried because of this of the parrot died. She said that it is all nonsense and it's all nonsense stuff and she should go to bed without any supper. So the queen told the maid of honor that she should be not allowed, means she should go and to bed without any supper. Supper is the last meal of the day. So because the parrot died, the princess was in a lot of sorrow and grief and a lot of pain because it was his favorite parrot and given by his father. So the maid of honor went to the queen and complained that the princess parrot died and she's crying a lot. So the queen said that everything was nonsense and she should go to bed without supper. Supper is usually the last meal of the day, like dinner. So the maid of honor wanted to go to a party so that the Princess September to bed as quickly as they could and left her by herself. So the maid of honor left the princess alone in the room to bed while they all went for a party. As while she lay in her bed, crying still even though she felt rather hungry, she saw a little bird hop into her shoe. She wiped her tears and sat up. Then the little bird began to sing and he sang a beautiful song all about the lake in the king's garden and the willow trees and that looked at themselves in the still water and the goldfish that glided in and out of the branches that were reflected in it. When he had finished, the princess was not crying anymore and she was quite forgot that she had no supper. So the princess was very happy to hear what all the little bird was singing and that made her forget that she had missed her supper dinner. That was a very nice song, she said to the bird. The little bird gave her a bow. That means they bent and gave like an expression of thank you, feeling of gratitude. What, would you care to have me in place of the parrot? Said the little bird. It's true that I am not so pretty to look at, but on the other hand, I have a much better voice compared to the parrot she is talking about. Princess September clapped her hands and with delight, and then the little bird hopped onto the end of the bed and still there. And as she opened, when she woke up next day, the little bird was still there. And as she opened her eyes, he said, "Good morning." The maid of honors brought her breakfast and he ate rice out of her hand and had his bath in her saucer. Saucer is like a plate. We say cup and saucer. So the plate that is put under the cup is called a saucer. It's a small plate. So the little bird ate rice from hands of the princess and took bath in the saucer. He began to sing again so beautifully that the maid of honor were quite surprised, for they had never heard anything like this. And Princess September was very proud and happy. Now I want to show you to my 8 sisters, said the princess. She stretched out a finger of her right hand so that it served as a perch, and the little bird flew down and sat on it. Like the eagle, they usually when you make a bird sit on your body, usually you make it sit on the big, like the eagle or something. You must have seen in movies also. So they sit here. That means they perch, they fly and they sit. And same way she showed a little finger finger and the bird came right on the finger and sat because that was a little bird. She stretched out his finger and she sat. Then, followed by her maid of honor, she went through the palace and called on each of the princesses. And for each of them, the little bird sang a different song. But the parrot could only say, God save the king and pretty Polly. At last, she showed the bird to the king and the queen. They were surprised and delighted. I knew I was right to send you to bed without any supper, said the queen. This bird sings much better than the parrots, said the king. I should have thought you got quite tired of hearing people say, God save the king, said the queen. I can't think why those girls want to teach their parrot to say it too. The sentiment is admirable, said the king, and I never mind how often I hear it. But I do get tired of hearing those parrots say, pretty Polly. So he never get tired of hearing God save the king, but the king got tired of hearing pretty Polly. They say it in 7 different languages, said the princesses. I dare say they do, said the king, but it reminds me too much of my counselors. Counselor is the one who helped the king in the kingdom, like his ministers. They say the same thing in 7 different ways, and it never means anything in any way they say. That means pretty Polly, it doesn't mean anything. Even if they say in 7 different languages, God save the king meant something, but pretty Polly is of no use. The princesses were vexed at this. That means they were worried, they were distressed. And the parrot looked very glum indeed. That means sad, because they are saying pretty Polly in 7 different languages, yet it is not pleasing the king. The Princess September ran through all the rooms of the palace, singing like a lark, like a bird, while the little bird flew round and round, her singing like a nightingale. Nightingale is a kind of a bird. Things went on like this for several days, and then the 8 princesses put their heads together. That means they thought of an idea. They went to September and sat down in a circle round her. My poor September, they said, we are sorry for the death of your beautiful parrot. It must be dreadful for you not to have a pet bird as we. That means it was very sad for you. So we have put all our pocket money together and we are going to buy you a lovely green and yellow parrot. Thank you for nothing, said September. I have a pet bird which sings the most charming songs to me, and I don't know what on earth I would do with a green and yellow parrot. So even the thought of pulling in the money together and getting a parrot for Princess September, she said that what would I do with the parrot? I already have such a bird that can sing so many songs to me every day. So what would I do with the green and yellow parrot? Well, my dear, they said, it's absurd to talk of your bird when the little fellow flies in and out just like he likes. They look around the room and raise their eyebrows. So here is the idea actually. So they said that, well, my dear, they said, it's absurd to talk of your bird when the little fellow flies and the little fellow is free. The bird is free to fly in and out. And they looked around and they found that they have said something that would surely strike the princess. Do you mind our asking where is your bird now? They said he has gone to pay a visit to his father-in-law, said Princess September. So they are actually trying to say that this bird is not having a cage. The bird is a free bird. But how can you say it is your pet? And what makes you think that he'll come back? Said the princesses. Well, he said, he always does come back, said September. Well, my dear, said the 8 princesses, if you will take our advice, you won't run any risk like that. If he comes back and bites you, if he does, you will be lucky. Pop him up into a cage and keep him there. That's the only way you can be sure of him. So because Princess was very proud of this little bird, they gave her an idea that you should keep this bird in a cage, and if it comes back, you should keep it in a cage because you don't know if it comes back or not. But I like to have him fly about in the room, said the young Princess September. Safety first, said her sisters ominously. That means together, they said. And they got up and walked out of the room, shaking her heads, and they left September